I didn't realize a person could break in silence until Mother's Day morning, standing in my own kitchen, holding a mug that said, "World's Most Pointless Woman." The words hit harder than any slap could have. Thick black letters, stark white ceramic, and both of them, Evan and our son, Logan, waiting for my reaction like it was a punchline. "Hold it up," Evan said, lifting his phone, angling it just right. "Come on, Rach, smile. It's funny," Logan snickered behind him, already recording, already framing me through a lens like I was some kind of content piece he owned. My breath snagged in my throat. For a second, the kitchen blurred. The cinnamon rolls I'd baked at dawn, the flowers I'd arranged, the sunlight falling across the tiles, it all felt like a set I had accidentally wandered onto, like I didn't belong in the scene of my own life. But I smiled. Of course I smiled. "Wow," I said, voice thin. "Guess the mug is honest." They roared. Actually roared. Like I was comedy incarnate. Like humiliating me was family entertainment. Something cold spread through my chest. Slow and steady. Like a crack forming in ice. I set the mug down. My hands were shaking so hard I had to hide them behind the counter. While they replayed the video, laughing even harder the second time, I quietly cleared plates, rinsed pans, wiped syrup from wood grain. Every clatter of dishes felt like another nail driven into the coffin of the woman I used to be. Then the accident happened. A vibration on the counter. A preview of a message from the PTA Moms group chat. And there it was. The video. Sent by Logan. By mistake. 30 seconds of my humiliation. My frozen expression. Their laughter. Under it, a caption he added. "Got Mom good." My stomach dropped so fast I had to grip the counter to stay upright. Paula. Yikes. That's bold Christy. Omg, Evan is hilarious. Julia R. Has anyone asked if she's okay? 8 words. One stranger noticing what no one in my house cared to see. I wiped my hands on a towel, looked out the window at the garden I'd tended alone for years. And something inside me whispered, not loud, not angry, just steady, "Leave." Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from, and hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by family. If you'd asked anyone who knew us in the early years, they would have said we were a solid family. Not perfect, no family is, but steady, predictable, normal. They would have pointed to Evan's job, our house in the quiet suburb with tree-lined sidewalks, Logan's honor roll certificates pinned to the fridge, the way our Christmas cards always looked coordinated, even though I was the one who planned the outfits and set up the tripod because Evan didn't have an eye for that stuff. From the outside, we were the kind of family people assumed had it figured out. Inside, I was disappearing one unnoticed inch at a time. It didn't start with shouting. That's the misconception. People think toxic marriages are loud, dramatic, explosive. But ours was quiet, controlled, like someone slowly turning down the dimmer until one day the room is dark and you can't remember when you stopped seeing. I used to work in marketing, real marketing, not the volunteer kind. I had a career I loved, a small team under me, clients who trusted my instincts. Evan said he was proud of me. Said it often, especially in the beginning, when it made him look like the kind of modern husband everybody applauded. But pride has a thin expiration date in a house where only one person brings home a paycheck. When I got pregnant with Logan, I told myself stepping back was temporary. 2 years, maybe 3. Just long enough for him to start school, I said. Then I'll go back. But the school years came and went, and somehow the return date kept shifting. First because daycare was too expensive, then because Evan's job got more demanding, then because Logan needed help adjusting to first grade, then second, then fifth. By the time I realized 5 years had passed, I had become the infrastructure of the household. The meal planner, the emotional sponge, the chauffeur, the family calendar, the chore enforcer, the appointment scheduler, the everything but myself. When Evan introduced me at company dinners, he'd say, "This is my wife, Rachel. She keeps things running at home so I can focus." The men would nod, impressed. The women would smile politely, sometimes sympathetically, and I would laugh soft, quiet, the kind that didn't shake the air too much. But later, alone in the car, I'd replay the phrase, "keep things running," and wonder when I became less of a partner and more of a maintenance worker. The erosion wasn't always obvious. Sometimes it was a joke that landed too sharply. Sometimes it was a disagreement that got smoothed over too quickly to resolve. Sometimes it was a moment where I needed comfort, and Evan offered efficiency instead. And then, there were the small humiliations, like the time Evan bought me a dress 2 sizes too small as motivation, or when he suggested I try a little harder with my hair before meeting his coworkers, or when he said, "You're overthinking it," whenever I expressed discomfort. He didn't say it to be cruel. Evan never positioned himself as the villain. He always believed he was being reasonable, helpful, honest. That's the worst part. He genuinely didn't think he was hurting me. In his mind, I was the one who should have toughened up. But after years of these small cuts, you stop feeling the blade. You only feel the blood. Our son, Logan, wasn't cruel. Not intentionally. But he absorbed everything Evan modeled. Kids pick up disrespect faster than love. In middle school, Logan still hugged me goodbye. By high school, he barely said morning unless I reminded him to eat breakfast. He'd come home, grab food, retreat into his room. I'd knock softly, ask about school, and he'd respond with monosyllables. Fine, whatever, it's good. And then came the day he called me Rachel in front of his friends, like mom was a role I hadn't earned. They laughed. He laughed. I forced a smile. Later that night, I sat in the laundry room folding his shirts and wondered how many years of love it takes to outweigh one careless moment of teenage cruelty. I never blamed him, but it still hurt. God, it hurt. The PTA was the only place where anyone seemed to notice my existence. I ran events, managed communication, organized spreadsheets, balanced budgets, printed flyers, directed volunteers. I did the jobs no one else wanted to do, and I did them well. Sometimes another mom would say, "Rachel, you're a lifesaver." And for a second, I'd feel seen. Then I'd go home, and Evan would ask why dinner was late. There was a moment, one I've never told anyone about, when I realized just how far I had drifted from the person I used to be. It was a Tuesday morning. Logan was already at school. Evan had left early for a meeting. I walked past the hallway mirror and caught my reflection. Hair pulled back in a messy bun. Dark circles, sweatpants, a hoodie with a bleach stain. No makeup, no earrings, shoulders slumped. I looked like someone who apologized for taking up oxygen. I stood there for a full minute, staring at that woman. "I'm tired," I whispered. Not physically, existentially. But I brushed it off, made coffee, started laundry, carried on. That's what women like me do. We carry on until something breaks. The thing that finally snapped wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It was ceramic. A mug. The Mother's Day mug was not the beginning of my pain. It was the moment my pain grew a voice, a face, a caption, a share button. It was the moment I realized how small I had become in the story of my own life, and how easily they were willing to offer my dignity as entertainment. And once you see your own collapse from above, there's no unseeing it. There's a certain type of silence that feels like being smothered with a pillow. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady pressure until you stop struggling. That was the silence in our house during the last 2 years before I left. Evan walked around like a man carrying the whole world on his back, and I walked behind him, picking up everything he dropped. Appointments, errands, emotional messes quietly, efficiently, invisibly. People think the big fights are what ruin a marriage. They're wrong. It's the small, constant dismissals that drain the oxygen out of the room. The way Evan would wave his hand when I tried to talk about my day. The way he'd check his phone while I was mid-sentence. The way he'd sigh when I asked him to handle something for once, as if I were handing him a burden instead of a responsibility. He didn't shout. He didn't hit. He just didn't care. Indifference is colder than cruelty. Cruelty at least acknowledges your existence. Around year 10, he started reviewing me before social events. "Maybe wear something darker," he'd say. "You look washed out in that color. You sure you want your hair like that? You're talking too fast. Slow down. It sounds nervous." I used to adjust myself like he was the mirror I needed to check before stepping out into the world. I didn't realize he was sanding down parts of me until I was too smooth to recognize. The house itself became a stage I performed on. Every morning, I brewed coffee before Evan came downstairs. I bought his favorite creamer, the one he liked but never remembered the name of. I folded his shirts with military precision because he said he hated wrinkled collars. I packed Logan's lunches with notes inside notes. He stopped reading around 7th grade. And every evening, when Evan walked through the door, I felt my spine straighten automatically, like muscle memory in service mode. If he came home in a good mood, great. If he came home irritated, I braced for the passive-aggressive comments. The house feels stuffy. We're out of decent snacks again. Did you forget to pick up my dry cleaning? Evan never forgot anything important because forgetting was what I did for him. I started tracking his moods like weather patterns. If he tossed his keys too hard onto the counter, bad day. If he loosened his tie with a sigh, medium day. If he grabbed a beer before saying hello, dangerous day. Stay agreeable. Logan picked up on it too. And somewhere along the line, he started mirroring his dad's tone. Once, during a PTA meeting, Logan texted me, "Where's the hoodie I wanted?" I told him it was in the wash. He replied, "Geez, Rachel, can you not mess up my stuff for one day?" He didn't even notice he'd typed my name instead of Mom. I didn't correct him. When I showed Evan the message that night, hoping he'd talk to him, he laughed. "Teenagers," he said, "don't take it personally." Then he added, half joking, "Maybe try keeping better track of his laundry." He didn't see the way my face fell. Or maybe he did. But looking away was easier. There were bright spots, though small, fragile ones. My garden. That patch of soil in the front yard, the one everyone complimented at block parties. "Your husband must have such a green thumb," neighbors would say. Evan always smiled politely and didn't correct them, but those flowers were mine. My solitude, my breath of air between chores. On warm evenings, I'd stand outside watering the hydrangeas, and for a moment, I'd remember the woman I was before motherhood, before marriage, before the erosion, a woman with dreams bigger than a grocery list. But inside the house, the air was different. One night, about a year before the mug incident, Evan and I attended his company's awards banquet. I wore a dress I'd saved for months to buy something elegant, something that made me feel like I still had a pulse. Evan barely looked at me. At the banquet, one of the executives turned to me and asked, "So what do you do?" I opened my mouth. Evan answered for me. "She stays home," he said, smiling. "She's great at it." The words weren't cruel, but the tone was ownership. When we got back to the car, I sat in the passenger seat with my hands folded tightly in my lap. He chatted about the event, about who said what, about who he needed to follow up with. He didn't notice I hadn't spoken for 15 minutes. Later that night, in the bathroom, I took off my makeup slowly. Each swipe of the remover felt like erasing the version of me that had existed before the banquet. I stared at my bare face, lit by the harsh overhead light, and whispered, "Is this it?" But I didn't leave. Women like me rarely leave on the first heartbreak. We stay. We rationalize. We hope things get better. But patterns don't break gently. They snap, and when they do, it's sudden, merciless, undeniable. Mine snapped on Mother's Day with that mug, that laughter, that video sent to the wrong group chat. But the breaking had begun long before, and once you trace the cracks backward, the whole history comes into focus. Every small dismissal, every ignored plea, every moment of shrinking to make someone else comfortable. That's the real backstory, not the mug, not even the laughter. It was the years of being told, in 1,000 subtle ways, you matter less, and the day you finally believe it is the day everything begins to fall apart. The night of the mug, after Evan fell asleep with the TV still humming in the background, I sat at my little corner desk and stared at my laptop screen. The house was dark, quiet, heavy, the kind of quiet that usually meant I should rest. But I couldn't. Something inside me had shifted too far to snap back into place. They say every woman has a moment she doesn't come back from. This was mine. I opened an incognito window. The glow lit my hands, steady for once. No shaking, no second guessing. I typed, "One-way flights Portland," and hit enter. Not because Portland was magical. Not because I had some grand plan waiting there, but because it was far enough that Evan couldn't convince me to return and close enough that Logan could reach me when he was ready. And because Megan, an old friend from my working days, lived there, not a best friend, not a safety net, just someone who remembered who I was before the erosion. Then I made rules. Quiet ones, brutal ones. Rule 1. No more begging people to understand me. If someone didn't see my worth, I would stop holding up signs pointing to it. Rule 2. Leave clean. No yelling. No scene. No smashed mug. I wouldn't give Evan footage he could twist into, "She's unstable." Rule 3. Build an exit path, brick by brick. A new bank account under my maiden name. A lawyer who didn't flinch when I said, "I need to leave quietly." Evidence, screenshots, messages, documents that proved my contribution wasn't invisible just because Evan pretended it was. Rule 4. Write a letter to Logan. Not an apology, a map, something he could follow when the dust settled. And the last rule, the one that scared me with how steady it felt. I would not be talked out of this. The next morning, while Evan joked about weekend plans and Logan scrolled through his phone, I nodded along, played my role, did the chores, packed lunches, folded shirts. All the while, I kept my secret close to my chest like a new pulse. I wasn't running away. I was walking towards something myself. The first morning after deciding to leave, everything looked the same but felt entirely different, like someone had shifted the world 1 inch to the left and expected me not to notice. The house still smelled like Evan's aftershave and Logan's body spray. The sink still held the cereal bowls they left behind. The garden outside still glowed in soft morning light, but I moved through it all with a strange, eerie calm, as if I were walking through the memory of my life, not the life itself. For 14 days, I became 2 versions of myself. Version 1. The woman they thought they knew. The one who woke before everyone else, brewed strong coffee for Evan, packed Logan's lunch with the exact snacks he liked, and kept the house running like a quiet, unpaid machine. Version 2. The woman planning an escape. The duality was exhausting at first. I'd fold Evan's shirts while mentally calculating how many I could take without him noticing. I'd chop vegetables for dinner and, between slices, rehearse what I'd say to the lawyer. I'd drive Logan to school while scanning his face in the rearview mirror, wondering how much of him belonged to me and how much had already been shaped by Evan. And every night, after they slept, I'd sit at my corner desk and clear another step on my invisible path out. The secret work began with money, because leaving without it wasn't leaving, it was relocating the cage. I opened a new checking account under my maiden name, Moore. It felt strange seeing that name on paper again, like rediscovering a part of myself I'd buried under grocery lists and PTA emails. I transferred small amounts every few days. $40 on Monday, $60 on Wednesday, $85 on Friday. All small enough to blend into household purchases. Evan never noticed. He wasn't the kind of man who tracked the finances unless it benefited him. Then came documentation. Monica Ruiz, my lawyer, told me what I already suspected. Courts don't care about feelings, they care about facts. So I gathered facts like a soldier collecting ammunition. I photographed every room in the house, especially the improvements I'd made. The shelves I built, the garden bed I carved out by hand, the paint I'd chosen and applied myself when Evan claimed he was too tired for home projects. I took pictures of the good china, the one I only used on holidays, another symbol of celebration wasted on people who no longer celebrated me. I collected emails. Evan joking about me being basically retired despite me running the entire household. Screenshots of Logan calling me Rachel online, like I wasn't his mother. The Mother's Day mug video from the PTA group chat, my humiliation frozen in pixels. I created a folder on my laptop and labeled it Necessary Truths. Each file I dropped into it made me breathe a little easier. The next step was career resurrection. I hadn't worked in over a decade, but Naomi Price, an old coworker from my marketing agency, responded to my message within minutes. When we video called, she squinted at me, then softened. "Damn, Rachel. I haven't seen that look in years." "What look?" "The look of someone deciding to burn their life down so they can build something better." I exhaled. Long and shaky. "Is that a good thing?" "It's the only thing that ever saved me." Naomi helped me rework my resume, reframing all those invisible motherhood years into real, quantifiable skills. Budget management, logistics planning, crisis handling, community coordination. Things I'd done so naturally I didn't realize they were assets. You didn't stop working, she said. You just stopped getting paid for it. Her words settled into me like truth I should have known all along. I prepared for interviews, practiced answers in the mirror, wrote down reminders, shoulders back, unclenched jaw, don't default to apologizing. I hadn't realized until then how often I apologized for simply existing. Meanwhile, Evan started to unravel without noticing he was unraveling. He misread the day of Logan's dentist appointment and showed up at the wrong time. He snapped at Logan for being dramatic when the boy couldn't find a hoodie. He left the garage door open overnight twice. He burned toast, which he hadn't done once in the 13 years I'd been in charge of breakfast. Tiny fissures in his tidy little world, cracks he blamed on stress, on work, on anything but the fact that he sensed something slipping out of his control. The more he stumbled, the steadier I became. On day 6, I met Monica in person. Her office was on the second floor of a small brick building between a laundromat and a bakery. No marble floors, no fancy receptionist, just shelves of case files, a coffee machine older than me, and a woman with sharp eyes who wasted no time. Tell me everything, she said, and I did. When I described the mug, Monica didn't flinch, just wrote faster. When I told her about the laughter, she tapped her pen hard enough to dent the legal pad. When I explained the years of being talked over, minimized, erased, she said quietly, "This is not a marriage. This is a job you never applied for." Then she outlined the plan. You leave in 14 days. Not earlier. Not later. I'll file after that. Clean exit. Paper trail. He won't see it coming. There was a detail, she added, a twist I didn't expect. Someone gave me your name before. She said, someone who said, if Rachel ever calls, take care of her. My brows lifted. Who? Julia Ramirez, the PTA mom who wrote, has anyone asked if she's okay under Logan's video? I sat back, stunned. We barely know each other. Sometimes, Monica said. Strangers see danger faster than family. That night, as I folded laundry, Evan walked by the door and glanced at me. You okay? He asked, as if he hadn't humiliated me days before. Fine, I said. He nodded, satisfied with the mask. But inside, I was counting down hours, not forgiving anything. The final piece was arranging my exit. I packed my essentials into a suitcase. 2 pairs of jeans, 3 work tops, underwear, toiletries, my old laptop, a thumb drive of documents, my grandmother's necklace, and after a long hesitation, the mug. Not because I wanted it, but because it was evidence. A relic. The match that lit the fuse. I hid the suitcase in the garage behind the holiday decorations. Evan never touched those boxes. The day I bought the plane ticket, Portland felt like a myth. A distant place where nobody knew me as the woman who burned her life on the altar of someone else's comfort. A city where I could be a stranger with a new name and a new story. It wasn't freedom yet, but it was the map to it. And for the first time in years, I felt something like oxygen return to my blood. 2 weeks passed like a long exhale I'd been holding for years, slow, tense, but with a promise at the end. By the morning of my departure, I'd become so practiced in pretending that even I had difficulty remembering which version of myself was real. The obedient wife or the woman ready to walk out the front door forever. Ironically, the day I left was painfully ordinary. Evan complained about the coffee being slightly weak. Logan grunted his usual good morning without looking up from his phone. The dishwasher beeped. A bird tapped the kitchen window. The world, as always, remained unmoved by my emotional earthquakes, but something in me had gone very still. After they left, I moved through the house with deliberate slowness, not to savor it, but to acknowledge it. Every corner where I had folded myself down to fit, every shadow where I'd hidden disappointment, every surface I'd scrubbed in hopes of earning kindness. Then, quietly, I grabbed my suitcase from the garage, loaded it into my trunk, and drove away from the neighborhood like a ghost who'd finally decided to stop haunting the wrong house. Portland felt like a different planet the moment I arrived. The air tasted wetter, greener, almost metallic from the constant drizzle. People walked slower. No one looked like they were performing for anyone. For the first time in forever, I blended in without feeling erased. Eileen O'Connor, the landlord Monica had connected me with, opened the door before I even knocked. She was small, wiry, with silver hair, in a messy bun, and eyes that saw too much. "You must be Rachel," she said, stepping aside. "Come in. Shoes off. That carpet is older than both of us, and twice as dramatic." Her humor was unexpected, warm, casual, not like Evan's biting jokes. I managed a small smile as I slipped out of my shoes. The studio was tiny but perfect. A kitchenette, a bed tucked beneath a slanted ceiling, one window overlooking a row of mossy rooftops. It smelled like lemon cleaning spray and old books. I set my suitcase down and felt something loosen inside me. "This place has good bones," Eileen said. "Quiet, safe. You'll find your feet here." I didn't realize how much I needed someone to say that until she did. By the second day, I'd already built small rituals to ground myself. A morning walk past the bakery that smelled like warm bread, coffee at Bread and Ink where the barista, Tasha, memorized my order by my third visit, a notebook I kept in my bag where I wrote whatever came to mind, memories, plans, the details of my new life that I didn't want to lose track of. Work came sooner than expected. Naomi put in a recommendation for me at Horizon Collective, and Celeste Harper, sharp-eyed, silver-haired, intense, invited me for an interview. Her office walls were covered with campaign posters for nonprofits, literacy programs, food banks, shelters, real causes, real people. She gestured for me to sit, then scanned my resume with the kind of attention most people only use for fine print on contracts. "You've been out of the workforce for 12 years, she said. I nodded. "Yes." "What did you learn in that time?" I opened my mouth, but instead of polished answers, truth came out. How to keep a household running on no sleep, how to negotiate with teenagers, how to budget down to the penny, how to put out emotional fires before they burned the whole place down, how to make myself needed. Celeste didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned back and crossed her arms. "So you were an operations manager, conflict mediator, logistics planner, and crisis strategist." I blinked. "I guess." She smiled. "Great. We need all of that." And just like that, she hired me. The first week at Horizon felt surreal. No one dismissed my ideas. No one asked why I was quiet. No one treated me like background noise. The office was messy, loud, vibrant. Half the desks were covered in sticky notes and empty coffee cups. The copywriter, Max, wore mismatched socks and swore constantly. The designer, Taylor, had a cactus collection that overtook half her desk. It was imperfect. And it was the first place in years where I didn't feel like furniture. At night, I walked to the pottery studio 2 streets over. The instructor, Gabriel Stone, had hands that looked carved from wood and a voice so calm it could quiet storms. He guided us with phrases like, "Clay remembers how you treat it, don't rush. It collapses when you force it." I didn't miss the parallels. I don't think he did either. My first pot was crooked. My second cracked. My third wobbled like it was drunk. But shaping something with my hands, something that existed only because I wanted it to, felt like reclaiming a muscle I'd forgotten I had. Meanwhile, back home, Evan unraveled further. He texted, called, left voicemails, all of which Monica intercepted. One message said, "Logan needs you. You're being selfish." Another said, "I don't deserve this. Come home and we'll fix it." The last said, "If you don't call me back, I'll tell people you're unstable." Classic Evan. Threats wrapped in worry. Ego, disguised as concern. Monica advised me, "Silence is your strength. Let him reveal himself." And he did. A week after I left, coworkers reported he had snapped at someone during a team meeting. He forgot to submit a quarterly report. He left work early claiming he was sick, but was spotted at a bar by someone who recognized him. Control was slipping, and Evan didn't know how to exist without it. Logan, though. Logan was the piece that bruised my ribs every night. I expected anger from him. Confusion. Silence. But the first message he sent wasn't any of those. "Are you safe?" 2 words. A doorway. I told him yes. Nothing more. I wasn't ready. He wasn't either. But the crack was there. Enough for light to get through. As days passed, Portland started to feel less like escape and more like possibility. I rearranged the studio, bought dishes that didn't match the ones Evan liked, ate meals when I was hungry, not when someone else expected food on the table. I laughed quietly at first, as if waiting for someone to scold me, then louder. The woman I was becoming wasn't loud, or reckless, or vengeful. She was steady, a slow flame rather than the explosion Evan expected. Healing didn't look like fireworks. It looked like drinking coffee in silence without being judged. It looked like walking without rushing. It looked like making something with my hands and not apologizing when it wasn't perfect. It looked like choosing myself every morning. And on the 14th morning, as sunlight spilled through the window onto my small table, I realized something. This wasn't the intermission of my life. This was the beginning. The first sign of trouble came on a Thursday morning, 12 days after I'd left, when my phone buzzed with a notification I hadn't expected, a Facebook tag. I hadn't posted anything since moving to Portland. I barely used social media at all. So the sight of my name glowing across the screen made my stomach pinch tight. I tapped it, and there it was. A photo of me and Logan from a beach trip 2 summers ago. We were smiling, sunburned, standing in front of the Pacific like we actually liked each other back then. Evan had posted it with a caption so polished it didn't sound like him at all. "If anyone sees my wife, please tell her we just want her home. We miss her. We love her. Heather, if you're reading this, please let us know you're safe." My breath hitched. Not because he missed me, not because he loved me, but because he had weaponized my disappearance into a pity parade. And it was working. Within minutes, hundreds of comments poured in. "You're such a good husband, Evan. Praying for your family. She must be struggling mentally, poor thing. Logan must be devastated." I felt heat crawl up my neck. It wasn't anger exactly, more like nausea. Watching people comfort the man who handed me a mug calling me pointless was surreal to the point of distortion. But then, buried among the sympathy, one woman commented something entirely different. Did anyone ask why she left? Her name, Julia Ramirez. I didn't know her well. Our sons had played baseball together years ago. We'd talked maybe twice. But that single sentence sliced through the narrative like a clean knife, and immediately she was attacked for it. "Not the time, Julia. Don't start drama. Evan's hurting. Show some compassion." Julia didn't reply again. But I felt something tighten in my chest. Recognition. Gratitude. Someone out there, someone on the outside, had at least questioned the facade. Still, the majority swallowed Evan's performance whole. And he didn't stop there. The next morning, Monica called. "Rachel, I need you to stay calm," she said before I even said hello. "Evan filed a missing person report." My pulse lurched. "You're kidding. This is his attempt to regain control," she continued. "But don't worry. I already contacted the detective on the case. You're safe, accounted for, voluntarily separated, and represented by counsel. They'll close his report." I sat at the edge of my bed, gripping the blanket. Why would he do that? Because if the world thinks you're unstable, the divorce gets easier for him, she said. Narrative management, textbook. My stomach clenched. Evan wasn't just reacting. He was planning. He was building a story brick by brick, the same way I had quietly built my escape. The difference? His story was a lie, and lies require more maintenance than truth. But the complications didn't stay online. That afternoon at Horizon, while I was reviewing campaign drafts with Taylor, my phone buzzed again, this time with an email. From Logan. Subject line: "Mom." Just 4 letters, but my hands trembled anyway. The message itself was short and stiff, the kind of tone teenagers use when they're trying to act older than they feel. "Mom, I don't understand why you left. I miss you. Can we talk?" I read it twice. Then a third time. Every part of me wanted to answer immediately, but Monica had warned me. Evan will use Logan to pull you back. He will script him. Don't rush. Still, this wasn't a stranger. This was my son. After sitting with the email for hours, walking around the apartment, pacing in circles, staring out the window as rain streaked down the glass, I finally wrote back, "I'm safe. I love you. I need some time. We'll talk soon." It wasn't enough. It wasn't everything I wanted to say. But it was the truth, and it was gentle. Still, I could feel the tectonic shift beneath it. Logan had reached out, which meant Evan's narrative might already be cracking. But if I thought complications would slow down, I was wrong. The following weekend, while I was shaping a lopsided bowl at the pottery studio, my phone lit up again. This time, a message from Naomi. "Hey, are you okay? Your husband posted something online that you're missing?" "Everything all right," I sighed. "I'm fine. He's trying things." She didn't ask more. Naomi always knew when to stop. But the fact that Evan's post had reached someone in another state told me exactly how far he was pushing it. Then came the text from Megan Girl. "What is happening back home? Your husband is saying you're unstable? Call me as soon as possible, unstable." There it was. The word he had been carefully circling, nudging, implying. He wasn't just painting me as missing, he was painting me as unwell, unpredictable, unfit. I didn't call Megan until that night. I stood by the window, sipping tea, watching headlights smear across wet pavement. When she answered, her voice was sharp. "Start talking." So I told her everything. The mug, the laughter, the flight, the silence. She listened without interrupting. Then she exhaled like she'd been holding it for days. "I'm proud of you," she said simply. "And whatever mess he's about to make, we'll deal with it." Her certainty steadied me, but the storm was still building. On Monday, Celeste called me into her office. She closed the door gently and gestured for me to sit. "I'm not asking for details," she said, "but I saw your husband's post, and I want you to know this place is safe. If you need time or flexibility, say it." The kindness almost undid me. Not pity, respect, something I hadn't felt in years. I nodded, swallowing the tightness in my throat. "Thank you," I whispered. Complications weren't done with me yet. That night, as I walked home, rain drizzling against my hood, my phone buzzed again. An unknown number. I almost ignored it, almost let it go to voicemail. But something made me answer. There was breathing on the other end. Then Evan's voice, low and controlled. "Rachel, you're making things worse. Come home. Now." My steps froze. "You shouldn't call me directly," I said. "All communication goes through Monica." "You're my wife," he snapped. "I don't need permission to talk to you." "Yes," I said quietly. "You do." A beat of silence. Then a laugh, cold, dismissive. "You think this is going to end well for you?" It wasn't a question. It was a warning, a reminder of who he believes he is. The man who never loses. The man who always has leverage. The man who thinks I am still the woman who stayed quiet. But I wasn't. Not anymore. I hung up. Not loudly, not angrily. Just ended it. And kept walking through the rain, knowing this was only the beginning of what he'd try next. The night Evan called me directly. The night his voice slithered through the phone like something I thought I'd escaped. I barely slept. Not because I was scared of him. I wasn't. Not anymore. But because I knew exactly what came next. When controlling men panic, they don't shrink. They expand. They fill every corner of your life until you can't breathe. They build narratives faster than you can correct them. And Evan was just getting started. The next morning, I woke to 27 missed calls, 8 voicemails, 5 texts in a row. "Pick up. You're ruining everything. Logan needs you. We can fix this. You're being dramatic." The usual cycle. Love bomb, blame, guilt, threat. But I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded everything to Monica. She messaged back almost instantly. "Good. Don't respond. Document everything." So I did. That afternoon, a new storm hit from a direction I didn't expect. I was at the office, helping Max brainstorm taglines for a literacy campaign, when I noticed everyone checking their phones at once. A ripple of whispers, discreet glances. Something had happened. I felt it before I saw it. Tasha from downstairs sent me a text. "Girl, look at Facebook." Logan. Ice crawled up my spine. I opened the app with shaking fingers. At the top of my feed was Logan's name. He had posted a screenshot from Evan's missing person report and captioned it, "I don't know what's true anymore." My heart folded in on itself. Not anger. Not fear. Something heavier. A grief shaped like guilt. The comments came fast. "Your mom must be sick. She needs help. Trust your dad, Logan. She abandoned you too. These people didn't know me. And worse, they didn't care to. But one comment under Logan's post pulled me to a stop. Julia Ramirez again. She wrote, "Sometimes people leave because staying is killing them. Just that. No explanation, no speech, no accusations." And people attacked her again. Of course. But she didn't delete her comment. She didn't apologize. She just left it there sharp, still, unmovable. A truth pebble dropped into a lake of lies. I closed the app. My chest felt tight, like a hand was pressing down on my lungs. Max glanced over, noticing my stillness. "You good?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah, just family stuff." He didn't pry. Horizon wasn't that kind of place. Here, boundaries weren't questioned. They were respected. That alone made my throat ache. On my walk home that evening, Portland's familiar drizzle clung to my jacket as if trying to comfort me. The streetlights glowed gold against the wet pavement. It should have been soothing, but my thoughts spun too tightly. Logan was trying to understand, but Evan was feeding him poison disguised as concern. Later that night, another message came in, this time from the PTA Moms group. A group I had been removed from quietly after disappearing. Someone had re-added me. At first, I didn't want to open it. I knew what was inside, but curiosity clawed at me. When I tapped the notification, dozens of messages popped up. "Poor Evan, this must be so hard on him. That woman always seemed fragile. Imagine leaving your child like that. She should be investigated. Maybe Evan should file for emergency custody." Every word was a match, striking the same wound. And it wasn't just gossip. It was positioning. They were circling the narrative Evan had handed them, preparing to paint me as negligent, unstable, unfit. Women who had asked me for help with events, who had thanked me for organizing bake sales, now speaking about me like I was dangerous. But then, right in the middle, Julia again. This group talks more about Evan's inconvenience than her humanity. Maybe ask what pushed her that far, instead of assuming she's broken. 3 minutes later, an admin removed Julia from the group. That told me everything I needed to know. I closed the app. The quiet in my apartment felt strangely sacred-like, a sanctuary I had built for myself brick by brick. But even sanctuaries have thin walls when people are determined to reach you, because just as I set my phone down, it buzzed again. Another email, from Logan, shorter than the last. "Dad is telling people you abandoned us. Did you?" I pressed my palm against my eyes, breathing through the sting. He wasn't accusing me, not yet. He was echoing what he heard. A child repeating grown-up scripts. I typed a response slowly, choosing every word like it mattered. "No. I left because I was disappearing. That's different. When you're ready, I'll explain more." I hovered before hitting send, then did it. 5 minutes later, another message chimed. Not from Logan, from Evan. A single sentence. "Stop manipulating our son. The wildest part?" He believed it. I didn't reply. My silence was gasoline to him, and he was already holding a match. The following day, Celeste approached me again. "Take tomorrow off," she said. "Rest. Reset. You're allowed to breathe aloud." A word that had never existed in my marriage. I did take the day. But rest wasn't what came. Because that night, just before midnight, my phone buzzed one more time. This buzz was different. A softer vibration. A DM request. From an account I didn't recognize. Attached was a video file. I hesitated, then pressed play. It was the Mother's Day clip. The mug. The laugh. The moment my smile cracked. Except this wasn't the version Logan recorded. This one had commentary. Snickering. Boys from Logan's group chat laughing as they watched it. One said, "Bro, your mom looks like she's gonna cry." Another said, "Post it. It'll go viral." I felt cold all over. Below the video was a message. "I think you should know what your husband and son thought was funny." The sender was, "Parent Watch. 1, a burner account. Anonymous." But the note beneath it wasn't anonymous at all. I saw the clip because my son was in the chat. I saved it before Evan convinced the boys to delete it. My pulse hammered. So that was the twist Monica warned me about, the loose end Evan forgot to tie, the mistake he didn't know he made. Evidence, not just of cruelty, but of intent. They had planned to post it, ridicule me, broadcast my humiliation, turn my pain into entertainment. This was the missing puzzle piece, and suddenly everything snapped into alignment. Evan's fear, his scramble to paint me as unstable, his sudden online performance of devotion, his missing person stunt. He wasn't worried about losing me. He was worried I had something that could expose him. And now, I did. I watched the clip one more time, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to feel every ounce of clarity sharpen inside me. Tomorrow, Monica and I would meet. Tomorrow, the narrative would turn, and the storm Evan had tried to unleash, he was about to learn what it felt like when it spun back toward him. I didn't walk into the courthouse as a victim. Not that morning. Not anymore. I walked in as someone who had survived the quietest kind of war and finally had proof that it happened. The building itself looked exactly like you'd expect. Gray stone. Too clean, too cold. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The air smelled like old coffee, floor cleaner, and the kind of paper that has seen too many signatures and not enough justice. My shoes echoed down the hallway, each click louder than it had any right to be. Monica walked beside me, a stack of organized folders tucked under her arm. She wore her usual navy blazer, hair pulled back, expression carved from focus. "You ready?" she asked. No one had asked me that in years. Ready for what I wanted. Ready for what I chose. I nodded. Yes. She studied my face for a second, like she was checking for cracks. "You remember how this goes," she said quietly. "Temporary support, division of assets, narrative positioning. We're not here to destroy him. We're here to correct the record and secure what you're entitled to. You tell the truth. I handle the rest." For the first time, I believed her. We reached Department 3. The door was heavy wood, chipped along the edges. Through the narrow window, I could see the courtroom, rows of benches, a raised bench for the judge, flags, and the familiar stale air of places where people pretend they aren't breaking hearts for a living. And there he was. Evan sat at the plaintiff's table, back straight, suit crisp. The navy jacket was one I had picked out years ago for a regional conference, back when I still believed in being his support system. It fit him well. It always had. But now it looked like armor he didn't deserve. Next to him sat his attorney, a man who could have been carved from marble and billable hours, silver hair, immaculate tie, expression bored even as he shuffled through documents that represented my life. Evan looked up when the door opened. Our eyes met. For a fraction of a second, his mask slipped. Surprise flickered across his face. Real surprise, as if he hadn't fully believed I'd show up. As if, on some level, he still thought I was the kind of woman who could be bullied into staying invisible. Then the look was gone, replaced by something cooler, controlled. He tilted his head in a small, mocking nod. "Rachel." His eyes said it without saying it. "Look what you've done." I walked past him without stopping. Monica and I took our seats at the respondents' table. The wood was scratched. My hands hovered above it and then decided to rest flat, palms down. No shaking. Good. Behind us, the benches filled with people waiting for their own hearings, their own heartbreaks. A few recognized Evan from his job in sales at a regional company. I saw them glance between us, whispering. I could practically hear the story playing in their heads, the one he had been feeding the world. Poor man, crazy wife, broken family. But the thing about stories is this. They can change in a single scene. The bailiff called for order. We rose as the judge entered. Judge Carmichael was a woman in her 50s with sharp cheekbones and eyes that looked like they'd seen every kind of mess. She wore the black robe with the bored comfort of someone who had watched thousands of people pretend to be reasonable in unreasonable situations. She glanced down at the docket. Blake versus Blake. She read, "Petitioner, Evan Blake. Respondent, Rachel Blake Moore," I corrected silently. "Not yet, but soon." We sat when instructed. The wood creaked under the collective weight. Evan's attorney, Mr. Sheridan, stood. His voice slid across the room, smooth and trained. "Your Honor, my client has been the sole financial provider for this family for over a decade. He has maintained stable employment, provided housing, education, and health care for both his wife and their son. Mrs. Blake, by her own choice, has not worked outside the home in 12 years. Recently, she abandoned the marital home without notice, leaving my client and their minor child behind, causing emotional distress and significant disruption. The word abandoned hit the air and stayed there, sticky and heavy. He continued, "We are requesting that this court acknowledge Mr. Blake's primary financial contributions and award a majority share of marital assets to him. We also question Mrs. Blake's current mental stability and judgment, given the circumstances of her departure." There it was. The narrative, polished and printed. I felt my jaw tighten, but I didn't look at Evan. I watched the judge instead. Her face didn't change. Sheridan spoke for several more minutes, weaving a story where Evan was the long-suffering husband, blindsided by his wife's irrational flight. Not once did he mention Mother's Day. Not once did he say the word pointless. Monica didn't interrupt. She just took notes, her pen moving fast and controlled. When Sheridan finished, he sat down with a faint, satisfied smile. "Miss Ruiz," Judge Carmichael said, turning to Monica. "Your response." Monica rose with the calm of someone who knew exactly how sharp her blade was. "Your Honor," she began, "my client did not abandon anything. She left a situation that had been eroding her dignity for years, and she did not do so recklessly or secretly. She consulted counsel, documented the conditions of her home life, and then relocated for her own safety and mental health, all while leaving the marital residence in order, the child in the care of his father, and without removing or damaging any joint property." She paused, letting that reshape the air. "As for not working," Monica continued, "Mrs. Blake stepped away from a growing career to raise their son and manage their household, enabling Mr. Blake's advancement. That unpaid labor has monetary value, as established in case law. We will demonstrate that her contributions increased the very assets Mr. Blake now claims as solely his." She gestured to the stack of folders on our table. "In these files are 12 years of tax returns, bank statements, household records, and employment documents from before Mrs. Blake left the workforce. We will also present digital evidence of ongoing emotional mistreatment, including public humiliation directed at my client by both Mr. Blake and, under his encouragement, their son." The mention of public humiliation sent a murmur through the benches. Evan shifted in his seat. Sheridan stood. "Objection, Your Honor. Emotional claims are subjective and irrelevant to financial distribution." Monica didn't flinch. Not when that emotional mistreatment was recorded, shared, and used to undermine my client's perceived value in her own family and community. Judge Carmichael held up a hand. "I'll allow it, depending on the relevance of the evidence presented." "Continue, Miss Ruiz." Monica nodded. "Thank you, Your Honor." She looked at me. Just a quick glance. "But it was enough, Mrs. Blake," she said. "Please step up to the witness stand." It wasn't fear that moved through me as I stood. It was something quieter, heavier. The awareness that for the first time in a long time, my voice would be recorded not as background noise, not as something to laugh at, but as testimony. I walked to the stand, placed my hand on the Bible because that's how the system works, and swore to tell the truth. I intended to do worse than that. I intended to tell the whole truth. Monica approached with a small, reassuring smile that only I could see. "Mrs. Blake," she began, "can you describe your role in the household during your marriage?" I took a breath. My voice sounded strange in the amplified quiet, but it held. "I ran everything I said. Schedules, meals, bills, school forms, appointments. I took care of our son. I organized family events. I handled holidays, birthdays, emergencies. I gave up my career so Evan could focus on his." "Did you discuss that sacrifice with your husband?" Monica asked. "Yes. Before I left my job, we agreed it made sense for one of us to stay home. He said, 'We're a team. My salary is our salary.' I believed him. And in the years that followed," Monica said, "did you feel your contribution was treated as equal?" A bitter laugh tried to claw its way up my throat. I swallowed it down. "No," I said. "It was treated like air, necessary, but invisible. If I did everything, it was expected. If I forgot one thing, it was a problem." "Can you give the court a specific example?" she asked. "Yes," I said slowly. "Last Mother's Day, I didn't look at Evan. I looked at the judge. On Mother's Day," I continued, "my husband and son gave me a mug that said, 'World's most pointless woman.' They recorded my reaction on video. They laughed. They planned to post it online. A shocked whisper ran through the courtroom. Monica's voice stayed steady. How did that make you feel? I remembered the weight of the mug in my hand, the warmth of the coffee, the way my heart felt colder than the tiles beneath my bare feet. Like every sacrifice I made was a joke, I said, like they had taken all the years I spent building that home and distilled them into one word: pointless. Did that incident affect your decision to leave? Yes, I said. It didn't start the pain, but it made it undeniable. It was the moment I realized I could either keep shrinking to fit their joke, or I could leave. Monica nodded once, then turned to the judge. Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to enter into evidence. Exhibit A, the video recorded on Mother's Day, provided anonymously by another parent who received it from Mr. Blake's son. The room seemed to inhale as one. Judge Carmichael adjusted her glasses. Play it. Monica pressed play. The courtroom went still, so still that even the hum of the overhead lights felt louder. On the monitor, my kitchen appeared. Bright morning sun, cinnamon rolls on the counter, the clean white tiles I had scrubbed the night before. Then the camera tilted, catching my face as I lifted the mug. The words on it, "World's most pointless woman," filled the screen in brutal, undeniable clarity. My own breath caught in my chest, even though I'd watched this clip more times than I cared to admit. In the video, my smile twitched. My eyes glossed. I held the mug awkwardly, like a prop I didn't audition for. Then Evan's voice came through the speakers. Come on, Rach. Smile. It's funny. Logan's voice followed, laughing. Dad, zoom in. Her face. The sound of their laughter echoed through the courtroom like something feral, distorted. Someone on the benches whispered, Jesus Christ. Another person muttered, that's messed up. As the clip continued, you could hear the rustle of plates meat cleaning up while they replayed the video, doubling over in laughter. The camera then cut abruptly, ending with Logan snorting. We got her. The monitor went black. Silence dropped like a stone. Judge Carmichael sat back slowly, her expression unreadable, but colder than before. Evan's attorney cleared his throat. Your Honor, we'd like to note that this was a joke. No, the judge said sharply, raising a hand. I don't need commentary yet. Sheridan's mouth snapped shut. Monica clasped her hands behind her back. Mrs. Blake, she said, did this behavior continue beyond what the video shows? Yes, I said. My voice felt steadier now that the worst of it was on display. They wanted to post it online. It wasn't just a moment. It was content. Monica nodded. And what effect did this humiliation have on your mental and emotional well-being? It clarified things, I said, showed me exactly how little I meant in my own home. A murmur spread again behind us, not judgment this time, but understanding. Monica turned, no further questions at this time. Sheridan stood so quickly, his chair scraped the floor. Your Honor, with respect, this video has been taken completely out of context. It was a family joke. Mrs. Blake is exaggerating the emotional impact to secure financial advantage. Judge Carmichael looked at him, unimpressed. Cross-examine. Don't lecture. Sheridan inhaled sharply, then approached the stand. Mrs. Blake, he said, voice smooth and condescending. This video depicts a moment of poor judgment, perhaps, but not abuse. Would you agree that many families make jokes, tease one another, share light-hearted pranks? If this were light-hearted, I said I wouldn't be here. He smirked. Jokes require mutual understanding. Isn't it possible they thought you would laugh along? No, I said. They thought I wouldn't stop them. A few people gasped softly. Sheridan's jaw tightened. You say this mug represents years of mistreatment. Can you quantify that? Or is this simply emotional interpretation? The video shows humiliation, I said. But the problem wasn't just that day. It was the pattern, the erosion. That mug was the final crack, and instead of communicating, Sheridan said, you chose to flee the home, leaving your son confused and in distress. I left a house. I said, not my son, he pounced. But you did leave your son. I left to stop disappearing. I said staying wasn't a kindness. It was a slow erasure. Sheridan leaned forward. Isn't it true, Mrs. Blake, that your husband has been attempting to reach you repeatedly, asking you to come home, offering reconciliation? He offered control. I corrected, not reconciliation. And you refused to respond. I responded by leaving, I said calmly. That was the clearest answer I could give. A beat. Sheridan inhaled, irritated, and took a step back. No further questions. I stepped down, pulse still steady, and took my seat beside Monica. Evan stared at me across the room, eyes narrowed, not panicked yet, but shaken. For the first time, I saw him realize that my silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy, and he'd underestimated it. Monica stood. Your Honor, the respondent calls Julia Ramirez as our next witness. Evan's head snapped toward us. Julia? A ripple of shock spread through the benches. I turned. Julia was sitting in the back row, hands folded tightly in her lap, shoulders squared like someone ready to do something terrifying. When she approached the stand, she moved with stiff determination, like a soldier walking toward fire. After being sworn in, Monica asked gently, "Miss Ramirez, how do you know the Blake family?" "Our sons went to school together," she said quietly. "I was in some of the same parent groups as Rachel, and did you witness any interactions relevant to this case?" Julia nodded. "Online," she said. "In the PTA moms group chat." A flick of discomfort crossed Evan's face. Monica gestured. "Please explain." Julia clasped her trembling hands. "When Logan sent that video, the Mother's Day one, a bunch of moms thought it was funny. They said Evan was hilarious. They joked about how Rachel always seemed fragile." The judge's expression hardened. Julia continued, voice shaking but gaining strength. "I wrote one comment, just one. I asked if anyone wondered how she felt. They attacked me, called me dramatic, told me to stay out of it. Then they removed me from the group." "Why did you speak up?" Monica asked. Julia looked at me. Her eyes softened. "Because I saw her face in that video," she whispered. "And I recognized the look. I've been that woman before." Silence spread again, this time thick with meaning. Sheridan stood. "Miss Ramirez, you don't personally know the Blake's marital dynamics, correct? You're projecting your own experiences." "Objection," Monica said, argumentative. "Sustained," the judge snapped. Sheridan tried again. "Miss Ramirez, did you ever see Evan treat Rachel poorly in person?" "No," Julia said honestly, "but abuse doesn't always happen in front of an audience." A few people shifted uncomfortably. Sheridan's face tightened. "No further questions," he muttered. When Julia stepped down, she gave me a small nod, one that said, "You're not alone." It hit deeper than I expected. Monica called the next witness, a digital forensics expert. He took the stand, gray beard, glasses, laptop in hand. A man no one would look at twice in a grocery store, but in a courtroom, he was lethal. "Mr. Haskins," Monica said, "you reviewed a set of digital files sent anonymously to Mrs. Blake. Can you confirm their authenticity?" "Yes," he said. "The metadata indicates the video was originally screen recorded from a group chat of minors. And what else did you find? A short audio clip recorded within that same chat. A boy identified by voice as Logan Blake says, and I quote, 'Dad says it's just a joke, but Mom looked really hurt.' Another boy replies, 'Post it. You'll go viral.'" The courtroom stirred. Even the judge looked displeased. Evan's face went pale. Sheridan sprang to his feet. "Your Honor, minors engaging in immature conversation should not be held against my client." "It speaks to Mr. Blake's influence," Monica said coolly, "and the normalization of humiliation in the home." The judge nodded. "The court will take it under advisement." Now the atmosphere changed entirely. People were no longer looking at me with pity. They were looking at Evan with something else. Judgment, distaste, recognition. He felt it too. I saw him shift in his seat, shoulders tensing, jaw clenching. Monica approached the bench again. "Your Honor, before we conclude, I'd like the court to hear one more piece of testimony from Mrs. Blake." The judge nodded. Monica looked at me. "Rachel, please return to the stand." I inhaled slowly and stood again. My legs felt solid beneath me. Once seated, Monica stepped close enough for only the judge in the front row to hear her properly. "Rachel," she said gently, "in your own words, why did you leave?" The courtroom held its breath. I did too. Then I spoke. "Because I was disappearing," I said, "not physically, emotionally. Every year, I got smaller. Every laugh at my expense was another inch gone. Every overlooked sacrifice was another part of me fading." I swallowed. "And the day they recorded that video, I realized I wasn't a mother or a wife to them. I was a prop, something to perform with, something to mock." A tear slid down my cheek. Not weakness, but release. I didn't leave because I stopped loving my son. I left because I couldn't keep teaching him that this was how you treat someone you claim to love. I steadied my breath. I left to survive myself. To find whatever pieces were left at the corner of my vision. Evan flinched. Sheridan rose again. "Mrs. Blake," but Judge Carmichael lifted a hand. "Enough. I've heard what I need to hear." The tension snapped through the room like a cut wire. "Both counsel will submit written closing statements," she said. "Temporary support is granted to Mrs. Blake. Final decisions on asset distribution will be issued after review of all evidence." Evan's face twisted shock, then fury, then something hollow. The judge stood. "Court is adjourned." The gavel struck, a sound like a door slamming shut on the life I'd lived. Monica exhaled. "You did incredibly well." I didn't answer, because Evan was standing, and he was walking toward me. His expression was carefully arranged, concern, disappointment, something that pretended to be love stretched over contempt. "Rachel," he said softly, "you didn't have to do this. We could have talked." I met his eyes. For the first time, there was no fear. Only truth. I spent 12 years talking. I said, "You never listened." His jaw twitched. I turned away and walked out of the courtroom into the cold hallway light, each step a beginning, not an ending. The hallway outside the courtroom smelled like disinfectant and old carpet, sharp, sterile, nothing like the emotional wildfire burning under my ribs. People streamed out behind me, some whispering about what they'd just witnessed, others pretending they hadn't been listening. But I felt all of it. The shifting air, the recalibration of judgment, the slow turning of heads toward Evan instead of me. For once, I wasn't the one shrinking. Monica walked beside me, her heels tapping a steady rhythm against the tiled floor. "Don't engage with him if he follows," she murmured. "He's volatile right now, volatile." The word fit him too well. We stopped at a bench near the exit so she could pack her folders. I sat beside her, hands clasped in my lap, trying to catch my breath. It wasn't shaking. It wasn't panic. It was something heavier, like my body finally understood what had happened, what I had finally said out loud. The truth wasn't a fragile thing. It had weight. You could feel it settle into your bones. I was still absorbing that when I heard footsteps approaching. Slow. Heavy. I didn't have to turn around to know who it was. Rachel Evans' voice came, low and tightly controlled, like a fuse burning too close to a bomb. I looked up. He stood a few feet away, his attorney hovering behind him, but clearly unsure whether to intervene. Evans' face was a stretched canvas, calm on the surface, cracking underneath. His eyes were glossy with a mix of anger, humiliation, maybe even betrayal. It would have been sad if it hadn't come from a man who had laughed at my pain. "Do you feel good about this?" he asked softly. "Dragging our family through court." I stared at him. "I didn't drag us here. You did when you filed the petition." He flinched. Monica stepped slightly closer to me, her presence a shield. Evan ignored her. "You humiliated me in there." I tilted my head. "In what way? By telling the truth? Or by showing the things you already did?" His jaw clenched. "It was a joke. It was a warning," I corrected. "You just didn't notice it." "Rachel," he said, voice cracking. "We had a life. We had a pattern," I said. "Patterns aren't the same as lives." He took a breath, like he was about to say something emotional or profound, some grand gesture he believed would undo the damage. But Monica cut in, voice firm as steel. "Mr. Blake, my client is not required to speak with you outside the courtroom." Evan turned on her. "Stay out of this." Monica didn't move, didn't blink. No, that stopped him short. No one in our home had ever told him that word without fear. He looked back at me. "What happens now? You think you won? You think the judge isn't going to see how unstable this all is?" I stood, slowly, steadily. When I spoke, my voice didn't rise. It didn't break. It just carried the finality of a locked door. "What happens now," I said, "is that I no longer let you decide the story." Before he could speak again, Monica touched my arm, guiding me toward the exit. As the glass doors swung open, cold air rushed in, fresh and biting. Outside, the sky was washed in pale gray, threatening rain. Good. Let it rain. We walked to the parking lot, and Monica stopped beside her car. "You handled yourself," she said. "Better than most clients do in their first hearing." I exhaled. I didn't think I'd get through it without shaking. "You did shake," she said gently, "just on the inside. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." I nodded slowly, letting the words settle. "Take tonight off," she said. "Rest. Tomorrow we strategize for the next phase." "The next phase?" I asked. Her smile was thin, knowing Evan's going to escalate. Men like him always do when they're cornered. She wasn't wrong. But the day wasn't over yet. On my way to my car, someone called my name Rachel. I turned. Julia Ramirez jogged across the lot, her purse bouncing against her hip. Her dark hair was pulled back into a ponytail. She looked breathless, both from nerves and speed. "Hey," she said when she reached me. I didn't want to leave without saying something." "Thank you," I said, "for what you said, for showing up." She shook her head. "No, thank you. You don't know how many women you just spoke for in there." I blinked. "I didn't do anything special." "You survived," Julia said, "and you didn't let him rewrite it." Her voice cracked slightly, and she pulled in a breath. "Just, if you ever need anything, even if it's just someone who understands, I'm here." I smiled, small, real. "I might take you up on that." She squeezed my arm. "Please do." As she walked away, I watched her get into her car and felt something unfamiliar. Support. Not pity, not obligation, support freely given. It struck me that this was the first time in years another woman had stood beside me in a fight I didn't fully realize I'd been losing for over a decade. I got into my own car and sat there for a long moment, hands on the wheel, eyes staring through the windshield at nothing. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Logan. 3 words. I saw everything. My throat tightened. I typed back, "Do you want to talk?" The dots appeared immediately, stopped, appeared again. Finally. Not yet. But I'm thinking. Better than silence. Better than scripting Evan's words. Thinking meant curiosity. Curiosity led to truth. I placed my phone face down and started the engine. That night, Portland felt different, heavier. The lights of the city seemed sharper, the rain colder, the air humming with the echo of everything said in court. My apartment was dim when I entered, but familiar now. Safe. Mine. I set down my bag, made myself tea, and sat at the small wooden table in the center of the room. The mug in my hand wasn't the white one with the word pointless printed across it. It was a plain, soft gray, neutral, unburdened. I inhaled steam, exhaled slowly. Then I opened my laptop. If the courtroom was the beginning of the truth, then what came next would be the counterstrike, the part Evan didn't see coming. I opened the folder titled Necessary Truths. One by one, I reviewed the evidence. Photos of the house, screenshots, emails, voicemails, the video, the boys' chat audio, and the new clip, the one with commentary from Logan's friends. The cruelty wasn't subtle. It wasn't accidental. It was systemic, habitual, repeated. It painted a picture clearer than any testimony could. I hadn't left on a whim. I'd left because the alternative was vanishing. A quiet knock pulled me from the screen. Only one person ever knocked on my door unannounced. I opened it to find Eileen holding a plate of oatmeal cookies. "I don't know what happened today," she said, "but the air around this building felt weird. Thought you might need something warm." I blinked. "Thank you." Her eyes softened. "Men think they're the authors of every story. They forget women write in ink." I laughed. Actually laughed. "That's very true." She winked. "Eat. Sleep. Tomorrow you plot." After she left, I sat again with the cookies and the open laptop. Plot. Yes. Tomorrow, Monica and I would meet again. We would put the pieces together. We would finalize which evidence went into the final settlement. We would prepare for the next hearing, the one that would shift everything permanently. But tonight, I allowed myself to feel the victory, small but sharp, that came from speaking truth in a room built to hide it. My phone buzzed again. This time, a number I didn't recognize. A voicemail. When I played it, Evan's voice filled the room. "Rachel, I know you think you won something today, but judges aren't stupid. They'll see you're unstable. I'll make sure they see it. You want a war? Fine. But you're not prepared for what's coming." I hit save. Not because the threat scared me, but because threats are evidence. I sat back in my chair. Evan thought what happened in court was the climax. He was wrong. It was only the turning point. Because the real climax wasn't him trying to regain control. It would be the moment he realized he had none. The moment he understood that the story he'd crafted so carefully, stable husband, unstable wife, was collapsing under the weight of its own lies. The moment he faced the version of me he never bothered to imagine existed. The quiet strategist. The woman who left clean. The woman who had proof. The woman who wasn't coming back. I finished my tea, closed the laptop, turned off the light, and went to bed not as the Rachel he had shaped, but as the Rachel who had stepped out from under him. Tomorrow, we would sharpen the truth. Tomorrow, the counter-move would begin. But tonight, the silence didn't suffocate. It soothed. The next morning, Portland woke under a sky the color of steel, flat, heavy, humming with the kind of tension that usually comes before a storm. I dressed slowly, choosing a simple black sweater and jeans. No armor, no costume. Just me. The version of me Evan had underestimated every step of the way. Monica's office sat between a laundromat and a dented blue mailbox tagged with graffiti. Nothing about it looked like the headquarters of someone capable of dismantling a man's entire narrative. But that's exactly why Monica won so often. She never broadcasted power. She wielded it quietly. She buzzed me in before I even knocked. "You're early," she said, already sorting through files. "Good. We have a lot to cover." I sat across from her, my pulse steady as she slid a thick folder toward me. "This," she said, tapping the cover, "is the counter-move, and it's strong." Inside were printed screenshots, transcripts, timestamps, bank statements, and notes written in Monica's tight, precise handwriting. She pointed to the top section. "This is the timeline of events. Your work history, the decision to stay home, the joint agreement for you to be the primary caregiver, the years of unpaid labor. All documented, all verifiable." I nodded. "Okay, next," she said. Flipping to the next tab, "is the financial discrepancy. Evan opened a separate account 2 years ago. Small transfers at first, then increasingly larger ones. It shows intent to separate assets. Likely to prepare for a divorce on his terms. I stiffened. He planned to leave me. He planned to leave you comfortable, Monica said dryly, as long as you remained useful. Men like him, like control, not equality. It shouldn't have hurt, but it did. A small, sharp sting deep inside my chest. She flipped to another section, one labeled Digital Evidence. Now, this is the part he never expected to surface. She pressed play on her laptop. The Mother's Day video appeared again, but this time, the boys' commentary from the group chat layered over it. Bro, your mom looks like she's gonna cry. Post it. It'll go viral. This is gold. I felt my throat tighten. Monica didn't pause the clip. This establishes multiple things, she said. 1. The humiliation was premeditated. 2. Evan encouraged Logan to downplay your feelings. And 3. The environment in your home normalized disrespect toward you. I exhaled slowly. It's painful to hear. Painful, she said, but powerful. She clicked to the next audio file. Logan's recorded message from the same chat. Dad says it's just a joke, but Mom looked really hurt. My eyes stung. Monica lowered the laptop lid halfway, softening the blow. This is the turning point, Rachel. This is where the court sees not just what was done to you, but how it affected your child. I swallowed. He didn't mean harm. No, she agreed, but he learned it. And the court cares about learned behavior. She set the laptop aside, leaning forward now. The real blade. I blinked. There's more. Rachel, she said, eyes sharpening. Someone sent us something last night. Something big. My pulse quickened. Who? Anonymous. Likely a parent from the same group as Julia. The file metadata says it originated from a phone belonging to one of Evan's coworkers. My brows shot up. Coworkers. Monica opened another folder. Inside were screenshots of a private Slack channel from Evan's job, threads of conversations where he'd mocked me, called me lazy, complained that I didn't do anything all day, laughed about me missing a PTA meeting because I had been sick, mentioned the mug before he bought it. A direct quote from one message. Thinking of getting her a world's most pointless woman mug for Mother's Day. The guys are dying. Should be hilarious. I stared at it. He had planned it. He had bragged about it. He had workshopped my humiliation with an audience. Monica's voice was quiet but lethal. This, she said, is intentional emotional harm documented in his own words. This is what destroys his narrative of being a worried, abandoned husband. I didn't speak. My breath came slow, deliberate, almost too controlled. Monica kept going. And here, she said, sliding a printed copy of an HR email, is proof that his company has been alerted to his behavior. That missing person stunt? It's causing liability concerns. He's already on thin ice. I blinked. He's in trouble at work, correct, Monica said. And once we file this evidence for the final hearing, the company will be legally obligated to address his conduct toward you. Expect disciplinary action. I leaned back, absorbing it. I didn't want to ruin his life. You're not ruining it, Monica said firmly. He did that on his own. You're just removing his ability to blame you for the fallout. I stared at the stack of evidence. All the pieces I thought were small. All the moments I thought were harmless. All the jokes I forced myself to laugh at. All the sacrifices I made quietly, believing they mattered. They had been building. Not into a story of weakness, but into a case of undeniable truth. Now, Monica said, we prepare your statement for the final hearing. My statement, I asked. Yes, she said, your closing declaration. A clear, concise articulation of what happened, what you endured, and what you want. What I want. I echoed. It was a strange thought. I hadn't asked for anything in so long. You want financial parity, Monica said. You want legal recognition of your contribution. You want clear custodial structure for Logan. And you want to be left alone to build the life you're creating. I nodded slowly. And you want your story back, she added softly. Something in me cracked open like a door I hadn't realized was bolted shut. Yes, I whispered, I want my story back. Monica tapped the folder. Then this, she said, is how you take it. I didn't go home after leaving Monica's office. My feet carried me toward the river instead, a long stretch of gray-blue water sliding under the bridges like it had somewhere urgent to be. I watched it move, steady and unbothered, and wondered for a moment what it felt like to flow without permission. My phone buzzed once, then again, then again. I didn't need to look to know who it was. Evan had a pattern. Panic disguised as anger, anger disguised as love, love disguised as ownership. I let the phone ring in my pocket until it stopped. I wouldn't let him drag me back into the script. By the time I reached my apartment, the late afternoon light had turned gold, the kind that settles softly on everything, even the things that don't deserve it. I unlocked my door, tossed my keys on the counter, and opened my laptop. The first thing I saw was the notification, a message request. From Julia. I clicked it open. I don't know if you remember me, she wrote, but I was the one who commented on Evan's post. I figured you might want this. Attached were 2 files. The first was the full, unedited version of the Mother's Day video, before Logan trimmed it, before the filters, before the laughter swallowed the sound of my breath catching. The second was a screen recording showing Evan coaching Logan through caption options. Add something like, "Mom's so dramatic, that'll get laughs. Use the crying emoji. People love that." My stomach turned, not because it surprised me, but because it confirmed the things I had tried so hard not to believe. Another message from Julia followed. Leave him. For real. I did. Monica represented me too. You're in good hands. My hands shook, but not from fear. More like recognition. Validation. Proof that I wasn't imagining the cruelty. Someone else had seen it, named it, rejected it. I typed back. Thank you. Truly, I didn't cry. I thought I might, but instead, a strange, warm steadiness spread through me, like my ribs had been holding up the ceiling of our house for years and finally realized they didn't have to anymore. A new email came in seconds later. Monica. Subject. Additional evidence. Inside. More files. More documentation. More pieces of a puzzle Evan didn't know he'd dropped. One file stood out. A forwarded email from Evan's coworker. I figured she should know, the coworker wrote. He bragged about humiliating her. He even said women need to be kept in check. HR already knows. I sat back, fingers pressed to my lips. Years of being minimized, condensed into one sentence. Kept in check. That wasn't a joke. That wasn't humor. That was how he truly saw me. Something to manage, like a budget or a chore. I closed the laptop. For 10 full seconds, I just breathed. Then I opened my notebook, a thin, spiral-bound journal I had bought at a corner store the week I arrived in Portland. The cover was simple, a plain beige background, nothing written on it, no labels, no judgment, a blank start. I wrote one sentence. He underestimated the day I stopped accepting his version of the story. Then another. He never expected the world to see mine. The next step came from instinct more than strategy. I logged into Facebook, not the burner account, my real one. The mug photo was still there, the post still climbing, comments still flooding in, support, anger, stories from women I'd never met. And buried inside all of it was the undeniable truth. People were watching. People were listening. And Evan's narrative was cracking under the weight of the evidence. I clicked, create post, not revenge, not rage, just truth. I wrote, for years I thought silence was the cost of peace. It wasn't. It was the cost of losing myself. Thank you to the women who reached out with the truth they saw before I could name it. I'm rebuilding now, with clarity, not fear. I didn't tag Evan. I didn't need to. The post went live. Within minutes, the first comment appeared. From Naomi, my old coworker, proud of you. Keep going. Then another, from someone unexpected, Logan. Just 2 words. I'm sorry, my breath hitched. Not because everything was suddenly fixed, far from it, but because he'd spoken without being coached, without being weaponized, without being told what to think. It was the first completely honest thing he'd said in months. I replied simply, when you're ready, we'll talk, no promises, no pressure, but a door not wide open, not shut, just waiting. As the apartment grew darker around me, I realized something. This wasn't just a counterattack. This wasn't just legal strategy. This wasn't just narrative correction. This was reclamation of my voice, my history, my future, and for the first time in years, the word pointless felt like a joke, one that wasn't mine to carry anymore. Outside, the streetlights flickered on, washing the sidewalk in warm yellow glow. Inside, I closed my laptop, placed the mug photo back in its folder, and whispered a quiet truth into the empty room. It's my turn now. 6 months after the courthouse doors closed behind me, the world finally felt quiet again. Quiet in a way that wasn't suffocating, but spacious. Like the silence you get after turning off a machine that's been grinding in the background for years. And suddenly you realize how loud it had always been. My apartment in Portland had changed too. Not dramatically, but enough. The futon had been replaced by a real couch, soft gray, secondhand, but mine. The bookshelf was fuller now, stacked with marketing strategy books, memoirs by women who rebuilt themselves, a few thrillers Logan had insisted I try. The small kitchen had a magnet board on the fridge with grocery lists and recipes I was learning for myself, not for anyone else's preferences. And on the top shelf above the stove sat the mug, not hidden, not cherished, just placed there like a museum artifact from a civilization I no longer belonged to. A reminder of the day everything broke and the day everything began. I touched it less often now, not because it hurt, but because I didn't need to check if it was still real. The past had stopped feeling like a trap and started feeling like a lesson. Tuesday mornings were my favorite. I'd lace up my running shoes and jog along the river as the city woke bikers crossing the bridges, street vendors setting up carts, the cold Oregon air biting at my cheeks. My legs still gave out on hills sometimes, but I liked that. It reminded me I was building strength that wasn't there before. After running, I'd stop at Bread and Ink, where Tasha would greet me with her usual smirk. "Single black, 1 sugar," she'd say. Already typing it into the register, "You always remember," I'd tease. "Only the customers who tip well and look like they're writing a novel," she'd shoot back. Sometimes I'd tell her she was right. Sometimes I'd grin and say, "Not a novel, a war story." Because that's what the memoir had become. A documentation of battles I'd fought inside my own home, in silence, under the weight of expectations people treated like common sense. It wasn't a book of bitterness. It was a map, a record, a reclamation. Rebecca, my agent, said the early review copies were stirring interest. Especially the cover, where the mug hovered mid-air, frozen at the exact second before it would shatter. People emailed saying the image made their chests tighten. "It's too real," one woman wrote. "I've held that mug too." I knew exactly what she meant. Work had taken on a new rhythm too. At Horizon Collective, I eventually grew into the position of senior strategist, something I never expected so soon. But Celeste insisted I was ready. "You think like someone who has had to solve problems without resources," she told me. "That's a survival skill. In marketing, it's gold." I liked the responsibility. I liked that people trusted my judgment, that my ideas didn't need a male voice to validate them. I liked the feeling of walking into a conference room, knowing no one secretly thought I was just a housewife playing professional. I liked being visible. Logan came to visit almost every other weekend. The first few times were heavy, filled with pauses and words he was afraid to say wrong. But gradually, the weight eased. We learned how to talk again, not as mother versus son divided by Evan's narrative, but as two people trying to build something new on ground that had once been soaked in silence. He still lived with his father, but the cracks in that world had grown sharp and noticeable. "Dad gets annoyed when I mention you," Logan told me once while rearranging the potter's tools on my table. "He acts like your existence is embarrassing." I'd hummed softly. "He's embarrassed that his actions had consequences." "That's not yours to carry." Logan nodded. "I know. I'm starting to." He was taller now, shoulders broader, voice deeper, but his sensitivity buried so long under teenage bravado was resurfacing. He asked me questions about boundaries, respect, healthy relationships. One night, while drying dishes beside me, he whispered, "I don't want to be like him." "You won't," I said, and I meant it. "You're choosing differently," he exhaled. A shaky breath, like someone letting go of a fear they'd been warned not to name. Am I healed? People always want to know that. Healing isn't a place you arrive at. It's a muscle you build. Some days it's strong, some days it trembles, but it holds. At least now, I know what holding myself feels like. Sometimes, on evenings when the sun dipped low and the river turned molten gold, I'd stand at my small balcony with a plain white mug, no text. No message, no insult, just ceramic, warm in my hands. I'd sip, breathe deeply, and think about the woman I had been. The one who whispered instead of spoke, who walked quietly so no one would accuse her of asking too much. I didn't hate her. I mourned her, and I honored her by never becoming her again. Spring crept into Portland slowly, like it wasn't sure it was welcome. The mornings were still cold, the wind still sharp, but tiny green buds began appearing along the street near my apartment, little fists of color punching their way out of winter. I understood the feeling. By then, the memoir was in its final layout stage. My editor sent me the formatted pages with margin notes and questions. Seeing my life broken into chapters, headings, page numbers, it was strange. Like stepping outside my body and staring at a ghost version of myself frozen on paper. But it wasn't painful the way I expected. It was clarifying. Eileen knocked on my door one afternoon, holding a small pot of tulips. "These reminded me of you," she said simply. "They bloom after being buried." I placed them on the windowsill next to the mug. The contrast made me smile, beauty beside brokenness, growth beside the symbol of what nearly erased me. My days were full but peaceful. Work, therapy, running, pottery, dinner with Logan, and evenings spent drafting speeches for the book tour. Rebecca assured me was coming. She'd been right so far. I trusted her instinct. The world, apparently, was ready for the story I'd carried alone for too long. One Friday at the office, Celeste caught me in the hallway. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, brows raised in that way she had when she was assessing someone's emotional temperature. "You doing okay?" she asked. It wasn't small talk, she asked like she expected a real answer. "I think so," I said, Most days, yes, and the other days I shrugged. I remind myself that being free can feel like being lost at first. That's still progress, she said. Lost means you've stepped off the map someone else drew for you. It stunned me how one sentence could feel, like a hand reaching into my ribcage and straightening everything inside. That evening, I wrote the line down. It made it into the book's final chapter. Logan's college plans were taking shape too. He'd been accepted into 2 programs out of state, one in Seattle, one in Colorado, both far enough that Evan couldn't micromanage him, both close enough that he could visit me with ease. Are you nervous? I asked him over dinner one night. He nodded. Yeah. But I want to go somewhere I won't feel watched. He didn't have to explain. I understood. Evan had started dating a woman named Kelsey, but according to Logan, she was already shrinking under the pressure. The commentary on her clothes, the subtle digs about her schedule, the expectation she should support him better. Logan saw it. He named it, and naming it meant he would never repeat it. You're building your own future, I said. That takes guts. He gave me a soft smile, one that reminded me of when he was little. I learned from someone. On the first warm Saturday of the season, I walked down to the riverfront to clear my head before a Zoom meeting with the publisher. Kids ran through the spray fountain. Couples biked past. Someone played a guitar near the benches. Life. Everywhere. Moving forward. My phone buzzed. A message. From an unknown number. But I didn't need to check twice. Evan. I heard about your book. The text read, you didn't have to go this far. A second message followed. We both know things weren't as bad as you're making them sound. And a third, can we talk? For real this time. For a moment, the old instinct tightened in my chest, the one that said I should reply, smooth things over, prevent conflict. The instinct trained into me by years of swallowing pain, so he wouldn't feel discomfort. But that woman was gone. I typed one sentence. Please direct all communication through Monica. Then I blocked the number. The wind lifted my hair as I slipped the phone back into my pocket. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel cruel. I felt centered, like the ground wasn't tilting under my feet anymore. Later that night, I stood in my apartment, holding the plain white mug I'd bought months ago, the clean one, the new one. I filled it with tea and walked to the balcony. Below me, the city glowed. Streetlights flickering on, buses rumbling down wet pavement, distant sirens stretching through the cold air. I sipped slowly, the steam rising around my face. Inside, on the shelf, the old mug waited, not powerful, not painful, just a relic. I whispered the line I had written, the line that ended the book and, in many ways, ended the version of me Evan had tried to define. They put the word pointless in my hands and expected me to drink from it. I set it down and built a life where I didn't need their cup. I closed my eyes, breathed in the night, and let the peace settle into my bones. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, subscribe. This story isn't over. New beginnings rarely are.